doorbell rang at exactly 11:47 p.m. Sarah froze mid-step, her hand clutching the bowl of leftover candy. Halloween was over. The porch light had been off for hours. Every kid in the neighborhood was home by now, counting their haul, trading their least favorites. But someone was at her door. She moved toward the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to see. A small figure stood on her porch, a child no older than 7 wearing a tattered ghost costume. The fabric hung limp and dirty, swaying slightly in the windless night. The doorbell rang again. Sarah's breath caught. The child's face was hidden beneath the sheet, but something felt wrong. The way it stood too still. The way the air seemed colder suddenly, pressing against the glass. She opened the door. The child didn't move, didn't speak, just extended a small, pale hand, waiting. "You're out a little late, aren't you?" Sarah's voice trembled as she dropped a candy bar into the child's bag. The child tilted its head slowly, unnaturally like a puppet with cut strings. And then, in a voice that sounded like it came from somewhere far away, it whispered, "I've been waiting for you." Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment with your favorite spooky topic. I read every single one. Sarah stood in the doorway, candy bowl trembling in her hands. The child remained motionless, that pale hand still extended, fingers thin and cold-looking even from a distance. "What did you just say?" Sarah's voice came out smaller than she intended. The child didn't respond. The ghost costume, if you could even call it that anymore, hung from its small frame like funeral cloth. Stains darkened the fabric in patterns Sarah didn't want to examine too closely. She should close the door. Every instinct screamed it. But something kept her frozen there, watching, waiting. "Where are your parents?" She tried again, forcing steadiness into her words. "It's almost midnight, they must be worried." The sheet shifted slightly, as if the child beneath had turned to look down the empty street. When it spoke again, that distant, hollow voice made her skin crawl. "They stopped looking a long time ago." Sarah's grip tightened on the doorframe. The neighborhood was silent, unnaturally so. No cars passing, no wind in the trees. Even the usual sounds of the night seemed to have been swallowed by something thick and suffocating. "I think you should go home now," Sarah said, already starting to close the door. The child's head snapped up. Not gradually, not naturally, just up, like someone had yanked invisible strings. "But I am home." The words hit Sarah like ice water. She stumbled backward and the door swung wider. She hadn't meant to open it more, but her body betrayed her, moving on autopilot. The child stepped across the threshold. Sarah's living room suddenly felt smaller, darker. The lamps that had been burning cheerfully moments ago now cast shadows that stretched too far, reached too deep into corners that shouldn't exist. "You need to leave," Sarah said, her voice cracking. "Right now." The child stood in her entryway, perfectly still again. Then slowly, so slowly it made Sarah's stomach turn, it raised one hand and pointed toward the staircase. "She's been waiting too." "Who?" The word escaped before Sarah could stop it. "Your daughter." Sarah's blood turned to ice. Her daughter, Emma. Beautiful, bright Emma, with her gap-toothed smile and obsession with fairy tales. Emma, who had died 3 years ago in a car accident on Halloween night. Emma, whose room Sarah kept exactly as it was, unable to change a single thing. Emma, who this stranger couldn't possibly know about. "How do you know about my daughter?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now, but underneath the fear, something else stirred. Anger, hot and protective and fierce. The child tilted its head again, and for the first time Sarah saw something beneath the sheet. Not a face exactly, but the suggestion of one. Dark hollows where eyes should be. A mouth that seemed too wide. "She talks about you," the child said. "Every night. She stands at the top of the stairs and calls for you. Don't you hear her?" Sarah's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the wall for support, her mind racing. This was sick, some twisted prank. Maybe neighborhood teenagers had found out about Emma somehow, decided to torment the grieving mother on Halloween. But teenagers didn't feel like this. Didn't make the air itself seem wrong. "Get out of my house." Sarah's voice shook with rage now. "Get out before I call the police." "You won't call them." The child moved closer and Sarah noticed its feet, or rather noticed it didn't seem to have any. The costume draped to the floor, but nothing actually touched the hardwood. It glided more than walked. "You want to know?" the child continued. "You want to hear what she has to say. You've wanted it for 3 years." Sarah's phone was in her pocket. She could feel its weight, solid and real, but her hand wouldn't move toward it, because the child was right. God help her, it was right. For 3 years, she'd lived in this house alone, surrounded by Emma's things, talking to empty rooms, pretending she could feel her daughter's presence. She'd convinced herself that Emma was somehow still here, still with her. And now something was offering her proof. "What are you?" Sarah asked. The child paused at the bottom of the stairs. When it spoke again, its voice layered strangely, like multiple people talking at once, slightly out of sync. "I'm what comes when the veil gets thin, when love turns desperate, when grief makes holes in the world." It started climbing the stairs, each movement eerily smooth. "I'm what you called, Sarah. Every night you spent crying in Emma's room. Every time you begged for just one more moment. Every wish you made on birthday candles and shooting stars." Sarah followed, even as her rational mind screamed at her to run. She climbed the stairs like a woman in a trance, drawn by invisible threads of hope and horror. The child stopped outside Emma's door. The door Sarah had painted lavender because it was Emma's favorite color. The door with the hand-painted nameplate they'd made together one rainy Sunday. "She's in there," the child said. "But you have to invite me in first, that's how it works." "Invite you in? You're already in my house. Not into your house." The sheet rustled as something underneath shifted. "Into your life. Into the space where Emma was. You have to say yes. You have to choose." Sarah's hand hovered over the doorknob to Emma's room. Behind that door, she'd preserved everything exactly as Emma had left it the morning of the accident. The unmade bed, the chapter book on the nightstand, bookmarks still holding page 47, the drawings taped to the walls, princesses and dragons and one very detailed cat. "If I say yes," Sarah's throat tightened. "If I invite you in, I can see her? You can have her back." The child's voice dropped lower, more insistent. "Isn't that what you want? Isn't that what you've wanted every single day since she left?" Sarah thought of Emma's laugh, high and bright like bells, the way she'd run into the kitchen every morning demanding pancakes shaped like animals. How she'd hold Sarah's face in both small hands and declare very seriously, "You're my best mommy in the whole universe." 3 years of silence. 3 years of that laugh existing only in memory, fading a little more each day no matter how desperately Sarah tried to hold on to it. "Yes," Sarah whispered. "Yes, I want her back." The temperature dropped so suddenly Sarah could see her breath. The child moved closer until Sarah could smell something coming from beneath the sheet. Earth and rot, and something sweet, like decay. "Then say it properly. Say, I invite you in. I give you permission to fill the empty space." Sarah's hand shook on the doorknob. Every rational thought told her this was wrong, dangerous, impossible. But grief isn't rational. Loss doesn't follow logic. And hope, desperate, painful hope, can make people agree to anything. "I invite you in," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "I give you permission to fill the empty space." The moment the words left her mouth, the door to Emma's room swung open on its own. And there, sitting on the bed exactly as she had 3 years ago, was Emma. Same blonde pigtails, same freckles across her nose, same purple pajamas with the unicorn print. "Mommy?" Emma's voice was exactly as Sarah remembered. "I've been waiting so long. Why didn't you come?" Sarah's sob caught in her throat. She moved forward, arms already reaching, every cell in her body screaming to hold her daughter again. But the child in the ghost costume grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. The grip was ice cold, fingers like iron, Wait, it said, and now its voice sounded different. Older, sadder. Look at her carefully, Sarah. Look at what you're about to hold. Sarah forced herself to stop, to really look. And that's when she saw it. The slight wrongness. The way Emma's smile stretched just a bit too wide. How her eyes didn't quite blink in rhythm. The shadow she cast on the wall that didn't match her small body, but instead looked twisted, huge, with too many limbs. What is that? Sarah breathed. That's not Emma. No, the child agreed. But it could be. If you feed it enough. If you give it everything. Your joy, your memories, your life. It'll wear her face perfectly, and you'll never be alone again. Sarah jerked her hand free, backing away from the door. The thing on the bed, the thing that looked like Emma, tilted its head and frowned. Mommy, don't you want to play with me? Don't you love me anymore? The voice was perfect. Too perfect, like a recording played back, hitting every note but missing the soul beneath. You're not my daughter, Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. You're not Emma. The thing's smile faltered, then slowly, horribly, it began to change. Sarah slammed Emma's door shut and ran. She didn't stop at the stairs, didn't look back when she heard the door creak open behind her, didn't pause when something that sounded like Emma's voice called out, Mommy, please, it hurts when you leave. She burst through her front door into the October night, gasping for air that suddenly felt clean and real again. Behind her, the house stood silent, dark. The porch light she'd turned off hours ago flickered once, then died completely. The child in the ghost costume stood at her door, watching her from the threshold it could no longer cross. Slowly it raised one hand, not threatening almost, sad. She would have stayed forever, it said, voice carrying across the yard. You could have had her back. All you had to do was stop asking questions. Sarah's phone was already in her hand, finger hovering over 911. But what would she tell them? That something wearing her dead daughter's face had tried to trade her soul for company? What are you really? She asked, her voice steadier now that distance separated them. The child was quiet for a long moment. Then the sheet shifted, and beneath it, Sarah caught a glimpse of something ancient, something that had been knocking on doors and offering deals long before Halloween became a holiday. I'm the answer to prayers that should never be spoken, it said. I'm what comes when love refuses to let go, when people can't accept that some doors once closed should stay that way. The figure began to fade, dissolving like smoke in reverse, pulling back into shadows that seemed to swallow it whole. She's gone, Sarah, it whispered, voice already distant. Emma's been gone, and nothing I could give you would change that. The only thing I could offer was a beautiful lie wrapped in her face. Sarah stood in her yard, shaking, as the presence finally disappeared. The neighborhood sounds returned gradually. A dog barking 3 houses down, a car passing on the main road, wind rustling through dying leaves. Normal sounds, safe sounds. She looked back at her house, at Emma's window on the 2nd floor. For just a moment she thought she saw a small silhouette standing there, but when she blinked it was gone. Maybe it had never been there at all. Sarah took a deep breath and made a decision she should have made 3 years ago. Tomorrow she would start packing up Emma's room. Not to forget her daughter, never that, but to finally, truly let her rest. Because the dead don't belong with the living. And love, real love, means knowing when to say goodbye. So there it is. The trick-or-treater who didn't belong to the living. A reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones in costumes. They're the ones we invite in ourselves, born from grief and desperation and the refusal to accept what we've lost. This Halloween, when you hear that late knock on your door, when you see that last trick-or-treater standing in the shadows, maybe ask yourself, is this really just a kid looking for candy? Or is it something else, wearing a familiar face, offering you exactly what you think you want? If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button, share it with someone who loves a good scare, and drop a comment below with your favorite spooky topic. Whether it's haunted houses, cursed objects, or things that go bump in the night, I read every single one, and your suggestions might just become the next story that keeps you up at night. Until next time, keep your porch lights on, or maybe keep them off. You never know what might be waiting on the other side of the door.